Alright, so we finally got the 112 spoilers after the void break that we just went through for the last 3 weeks, and we're seeing Luffy get hurt in this chapter. Yeah, it seems like Mercury is hurting him. Maybe even Jupiter too. Venus, Juro, he's doing some crazy stuff. And Mars is finally possibly shutting down Vegapunk's transmission. But, you know, we'll get into all that stuff because we got to go over what had happened in the previous chapter because, like we said, it's been like 3 weeks. So, after Zoro had defeated Lucci, Mars was able to break his way through the barrier on Egghead, essentially saving Lucci from getting destroyed by Jinbei, who was picking up Zoro. Then Mars got all the information that he needed from Lucci, namely the information where command room is with York located there. So then Mars went off to go find York in the command room, you know, in order to shut down Vegapunk's broadcast. Then we come to Dory, Broggy, and Luffy taking on Saturn and Mercury, and kind of Jupiter because he got his head cut off, but he's still here. And Mercury is giving them some issues with like a hockey roar and like sword tusks, but Dory and Broggy are able to fight back. Luffy was also able to fight back with like a bat that he was able to make instantly and knock back Saturn's poison exploding balls thing at the Gorosei, which they regenerate from. So now Jupiter, Mercury, and Saturn are all back to full form as we've seen, and that's kind of where that interaction ended, with Luffy, Dory, and Broggy staring down Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn. Then we see Mars finally making his way to the control room where York is, and he asks her like, hey, where's the room on the monitor, so he could shut down the broadcast. And then at the very end of the chapter, we saw the Iron Giant suddenly emerge on Egghead, walking around and saying, sorry, Joy Boy. Now, let me also put it out there that the Iron Giant isn't being mentioned in the spoilers we're going to be going over today. However, I think that there's going to be a lot more in the full summary whenever that is released, so please subscribe to this channel, guys, if you haven't already. I'll have the full summary video out as soon as it comes out. But anyway, coming into these spoilers, Venus defeats all the pacifistas. So this isn't really a surprise. We saw a couple chapters back that when he finally made his big grand debut, at least from a combat aspect, he just went around Egghead slicing up all the pacifistas, stopping them from rebelling because, you know, we saw that Bonnie now has control over them because, you know, Vegapunk snuck in that contingency for Bonnie to be able to control them, you know, since they're based off of Kuma, her father. But now they're just all defeated. And yeah, Venus is a beast. He's actually going to come back a little later, and we'll get more into him. York leads Mars to the monitor room, and Mars destroys it. But the broadcast doesn't stop. However, Mars notices a sound and goes after it. So yeah, like we were talking about, Mars encountered York in the previous chapter, but she wasn't able to tell him anything, but we knew that she was going to because, you know, well, what is she just not going to tell him? Her whole thing was betraying Vegapunk so that she could join the world government and become a celestial dragon, as well as make them the fuel known as the Mother Flame, which in my opinion is the fuel for Uranus, the thing that destroyed Lelougia, the ancient weapon. But now the broadcast isn't stopping. We knew it wasn't going to be that easy. There's probably like another place where he needs to go to destroy it to shut down the broadcast, but he heard a sound which will be touched on at the end of this chapter, and we'll speculate about what it could be. Hey, but first, guys, GamerSupps just dropped a new flavor called Raw Meat, and it's in collaboration with Papa Meat. I'm a big fan of this guy, and chances are you probably are too, considering that we share demographics. But don't worry, it doesn't taste like raw meat. It actually tastes like watermelon and cantaloupe, but in my opinion, it straight up tastes like watermelon candy, which is incredible. It comes in caffeinated and decaffeinated. Both versions have the nootropics in it that are going to get you feeling great and focused, and overall just nice. They also have these awesome sus bars, which are only 100 calories and only has 1 gram of sugar and 8 grams of protein. My favorite flavor is the chocolate. I cannot get enough of these things. They also have Gamer Tea in both caffeinated and non-caffeinated. I personally really like the caffeine-free sleepy time with theanine. You can also get some of these awesome gamer soups, which I absolutely love. So guys, check the link in the description and make sure you use code BIGZ for 10% off your purchase. Thanks, guys. Luffy versus Jupiter. Luffy attacks Work Yuri too, but he gets hurt himself. So yeah, going back to the fight that we were talking about with Dory, Bragi, Luffy taking on the Gorosei. Dory and Bragi aren't being mentioned here, so maybe they get taken out possibly, which is realistically what should be happening. Like we've been talking about these last couple of weeks, but Luffy taking it to Jupiter. And Work Yuri too by himself. You know, we've seen that Luffy is essentially strong enough to fight two Gorosei at this point. It's all good, but he's getting hurt now because Luffy doesn't have the regeneration powers like the Gorosei do. So of course he will eventually lose a battle of attrition against them, even at the ridiculous power of Gear 5. While Bonnie is fighting Marines, Venus appears. Okay, so yeah, we saw in the previous chapter as Bonnie was making her way to, I think, the giant pirate's ship, there was like the vice admirals there waiting for her. And they're not too big of a deal, but now that Venus has showed up, this is a big deal because Venus will very likely just one-shot Bonnie in my opinion. But I think we know what's going to happen at this point. And Zoro's going to show up. I mean, Zoro's with Jinbei at this point, but you know how time works in One Piece, especially towards the end of the arcs. I wouldn't be surprised if Zoro is able to show up at this point and save Bonnie. And it's like, well, why would Zoro save Bonnie at this point? Why would it be critical for that to happen? Well, two reasons. First of all, you know, like I made another video about this a couple weeks ago with my boy Sai, talking about how Venus is very likely to be one of Zoro's final opponents. It's either going to be him or Mihawk. Like, one of them will either be the final or the penultimate opponent for him. There's definitely a connection between Venus and Zoro, so it would be fitting for them to spark that conflict now, you know, and have it play out later on at the end of the series. But also, if you're going back to Sabaody, it was Bonnie who saved Zoro from attacking the Celestial Dragons. I think it was Charlos at that point, right? So now we can have him paying her back by, you know, saving her from the ultimate Celestial Dragon and Venus. And then, you know, sparking that conflict. Mars reaches Punk records at the end of the chapter. He says, "You have no luck, Vegapunk." And then something catches his eye and he looks up. So, interesting cliffhanger here. Mars seemingly going to destroy the broadcast here, but he sees something and he looks up. I don't know if we're seeing this. It doesn't seem like we are, unless Pew Piece and Secret Sauce 2024 are really being conservative with the spoilers here, which is fine, but it's possible we might see a silhouette or something. Because one of Redon's hints kind of looks something like Emu. Now, I'm not saying that Emu is showing up here. I don't know who is showing up. I mean, you can probably guess. I mean, there's a list that you could just go off of, I suppose. But I don't know if it's Dragon. That would be pretty wild if it is Dragon who finally shows up here and then fights off Mars and continues Vegapunk's transmission. I mean, I suppose it's possible Dragon could get here in time if he does have like a Wind Logia or a mythical Zoan that allows him to fly or something like that, which seems likely. So it could be Dragon, could be Emu. Emu seems a little more unlikely because, you know, the Gorosei are there. Why would Emu have to go there unless Emu's like, you know, Thanos style and it's like, I'll do it myself. Yeah, I'll go way more into this once we get the full summary. But let me know what you guys think is happening with this in the comments. And if you liked it, please give it a like. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.